Salt. 2 atoms, the simplest ionic compound in chemistry, and yet without it, no animal on Earth could have a nervous system. No muscle could contract, no heart could beat. The wall behind me is 13 million years old. And right now, the same substance here is running electrical signals through your brain. Hello, my name is Lilith, and today, let's follow salt from the ancient ocean in these walls, through your bloodstream, and all the way to the place you'd never think to look. First, let's get personal. Right now, without you doing anything, your body is running one of the most precisely engineered systems in all biology. And salt is the thing making it possible. Every one of your 37 trillion cells is surrounded by a membrane. On each side, ions are dissolved in water. Inside, mostly potassium or kalium, whatever you call it. Outside, mostly sodium or natrium. Again, name depends on your location. This imbalance is not an accident. Your cells actively maintain it, using energy to pump sodium out and potassium in, continuously against everything that's trying to equalize them. Why? Osmosis. Water constantly moves through membranes toward wherever the concentration of solute is higher. Too much sodium outside, water flows out of your cells and they shrivel. Too much water flows in and they burst. Your kidneys are adjusting to this right now, every second of your life, without you even thinking about it once. But osmosis is just a maintenance system. The reason salt is neurologically essential is something more fundamental. Your nervous system runs on electricity, not the kind in copper wires, of course, the kind made by ions, specifically sodium ions, rushing across cell membranes. At rest, a neuron has a charge of about -70 millivolts. The sodium-potassium pump maintains this, moving 3 sodium ions out for every 2 potassium ions in, more positive charge leaving than arriving, so inside stays negative. Then a signal arrives. Sodium channels snap open. It rushes in, driven by 2 forces simultaneously. The concentration gradient, as there is more sodium outside, and the electrical gradient, as the negative inside pulls positive sodium ions toward it. The inside of the cell goes from -70 millivolts to +40 millivolts in 1 millisecond. That spike is the nerve signal. That is a thought. That is the signal telling your hand to move, your lungs to breathe, your heart to beat. Every single one of those signals depends on sodium being in the right place, at the right concentration, ready to rush in. Your brain uses roughly 20% of your body's total energy. A significant portion goes entirely to running the sodium-potassium pump and resetting the gradients after every single nerve firing to maintain the conditions for the next signal. The minimum amount of sodium your body needs each day to function is approximately 200 milligrams, equivalent to just half a gram of salt. But the deficiency causes muscle cramps, confusion, and seizures. In severe cases, the brain swells inside the skull. You drown, not in water, but in your own cells. So a small pinch of salt is enough to power a human. But this highly efficient system has one small flaw. Our bodies cannot make sodium. No biological process synthesizes sodium atoms. That requires nuclear physics, the interior of a star. Every sodium ion in our body came from the outside. Food, water, salt, which means every animal on Earth for 600 million years has had to find sodium to survive. Carnivores get it from blood and tissue. Herbivores seek out salt licks because plants are sodium poor. Deer have been documented traveling dozens of kilometers to reach natural salt deposits. And when humanity switched to farming grain, which is very low in sodium, we had to start actively producing and trading salt just to keep our neurons firing. We're in Romania, or rather, under it. "200 meters below the surface, inside Slănic salt mine, the largest salt mine in all Europe. carved into the earth since 1688. Look at those bands. Each one is a chapter, a shift in the chemistry of the world that made them. 40 million years ago, a vast inland sea called the Parathesys stretched across Central Europe from the Alps to what is now Kazakhstan. For millions of years, it was connected to the global ocean, normal seawater, marine life. Then the Alps and Carpathians began to rise. As mountains grew, they narrowed the Parathesys' connection to the open ocean. Water exchange slowed, then stopped. Around 13.8 million years ago, a drop in sea level closed the final getaway. The Parathesys was on its own. When a sea becomes isolated and evaporation exceeds inflow, the water becomes saltier and saltier and saltier. Eventually, marine ecosystems collapse. And as the water evaporated, the salt that had been dissolved in that sea for millions of years crystallized out, layer by layer, building deposits hundreds of meters thick. So this wall is that ocean, preserved for 30 million years. But how did it get here? Salt, under pressure, behaves like an extremely slow fluid. It is lighter than the rock surrounding it, so under the weight of kilometers of sediment, it rises. Slowly, over millions of years, it moved upward through solid rock. This is called diapirism, and this mine sits inside one of the stones that rose through kilometers of rock over millions of years and came to rest just below the Carpathian foothills. People have been coming down here for centuries to extract salt, but unlike other miners, and despite years of breathing this air, they had unusually low rates of respiratory diseases. Something about the salt particle aerosols, the sealed microclimates, and the constant cool temperature seem to agree with their lungs. We still don't fully understand, but it was real enough that people noticed it, real enough that people were coming here not only to extract salt, but to recover health, like an underground sanatorium. There's a very popular question about salt. Sea salt or rock salt? What is the difference? The salt in Celina mine is halite, rock salt. Sodium chloride, almost pure. White or gray depending on what mineral traces got trapped when it crystallized. Himalayan pink salt gets its color from iron oxide. Rust essentially. Trace amounts of iron that oxidized over millions of years inside the deposit. It's still mostly sodium chloride. The trace minerals are real, but present in such tiny quantities that the health claims around them are significantly overstated. To get a meaningful amount of iron from pink salt, you would need to eat around 150 grams per day, a full cup of salt. At which point, the sodium would be much more pressing concern, because it will kill you. And by the way, it doesn't come from the Himalayas. It comes from Kevra salt mine in Pakistan's Punjab province, about 300 kilometers from the nearest Himalayan peak. Then there is black salt, which is actually 3 completely different products sharing one name. Kala Namak, Indian black salt, is rock salt fired in a kiln with charcoal and hard seeds. Its distinctive sulfur smell comes from the firing process. Sodium sulfide forming as a byproduct. Hawaiian black salt gets its color from activated charcoal mixed in after evaporation. The charcoal is usually made from coconut shells and not to where it's traditionally produced. And volcanic black salt, like the kind from Iceland, gets its color from actual volcanic basalt or lava rock, ground fine and mixed into the salt. Same name, 3 different origins, none of them black, for the same reason. Which brings us back to the question: rock salt versus sea salt. Rock salt is an ancient ocean that solidified into stone. Sea salt is an ocean that hasn't solidified yet, chemically almost identical, both predominantly sodium chloride, both doing the same job in your body. The real difference is what came along for the ride. Sea salt carries trace amounts of magnesium, iodine, sulfur, whatever the modern ocean contains. Rock salt from a deposit like this one is often purer, closer to 100% sodium chloride, because the sea that made it was already isolated and mineral depleted by the time it crystallized. But there is one thing modern sea salt has that this world doesn't. Microplastics. Studies have detected plastic particles in the sea salt from every ocean tested because the water it evaporates from is full of them, and evaporation doesn't filter what's dissolved in it. This deposit has been sealed for 13 million years. Whatever was in the Parathesys sea when it crystallized, that's what's here. Nothing added since, which makes this almost certainly some of the cleanest salt on Earth. Every salt tells you where it came from, the color, the texture, the mineral trace, a record of the geology, the climate, the chemistry of the place and time that made it, including what humanity had already put into the water before it evaporated. So, what actually is this thing? Two elements, one of them catches fire in water, the other was used as a weapon in World War I. Together they make life possible. Sodium is element 11. Its outermost electron shell holds just one electron. Atoms want full outer shells. For most, that means 8. The rule that underlines almost all of chemistry. Sodium has 1. Losing it takes far less energy than gaining 7. Which means it will give that electron away to almost anything that's 1 short. Chlorine is element 17. 7 electrons in its outer shell, 1 short of full. When they meet, sodium hands its electron to chlorine. Sodium becomes positively charged. Chlorine negatively charged. Opposite charges attract. What forms is an ionic lattice. Each sodium ion is surrounded by exactly 6 chloride ions. Each chloride ion is surrounded by exactly 6 sodium ions. A perfect repeating 3-dimensional structure. That lattice is extraordinarily strong. The electrostatic forces holding it together are so powerful that salt melts at 801 degrees Celsius. But drop it in water and it dissolves in seconds. Water molecules are polar, slightly positive at one end, negative at the other. The negative end is attracted to sodium plus, the positive end to chlorine minus. Water clusters around each ion and pulls it away from the lattice one by one. That's happening here right now, very slowly. The humid air touches the surface, the salt dissolves, millimeter by millimeter. These two have been in a slow war for 13 million years, and water is winning. This is why for most of human history, keeping salt dry was one of the most serious logistical problems any army or civilization faced. Every gram lost to humidity was food loss, and more than food. The ability to preserve meat, treat wounds, and keep soldiers alive. Roman legions even received part of their pay in salt, or in money specifically allocated to buy it. The Latin word for that allocation was salarium. That's where the word salary comes from. You're still being paid in salt. You just receive it in a different form and spend most of it on things that have nothing to do with osmotic preservation. Progress, arguably. And speaking of conservation, before refrigeration, before pasteurization, salt was the only thing standing between humanity and starvation, quite literally. And it worked by doing exactly what it does in your body. Again, osmosis. You see, bacteria need water to function. It's the medium inside every living cell. Everything happens through it. Remove it, and the cell dies. Pack food in enough salt, and the salt creates such a concentrated environment outside the bacterial cells that water
is physically pulled out of them through their own membranes by the same force that governs every cell in your body. They shrivel and can't reproduce. Most die.
Scientists measure this using a number called water activity, how much free water is available for microbial use. Fresh meat sits at about 0.99. Most dangerous bacteria can't survive below 0.94. That's roughly a 10% salt concentration. Cross that threshold and food is preserved.
But salt doesn't kill everything. Some bacteria, halophiles, salt lovers, actually require high salt to survive. Evolution found a way, as it always does. And at lower concentrations, 2 to 5%, salt doesn't kill bacteria at all. It just picks winners.
At that concentration, lactic acid bacteria thrive. Most dangerous competitors can't, so the lactic acid bacteria take over, consume the available sugars, and produce acid as a byproduct. The pH drops, and that acid preserves the food more effectively than the salt alone ever could. The salt didn't kill the bacteria, it chose them.
That's fermentation. Kimchi, pickles, miso, fish sauce, sourdough bread. The tang you taste is lactic acid bacteria kept in balance partly by salt. Cheese, where it literally shapes the texture and decides which microbes survive long enough to create the flavor. Every cultured dairy product you've ever eaten started with salt.
Once you understand that chemistry, the history makes complete sense. The ancient Egyptians used salt to preserve everything: food, trade goods, and even their dead. Mummification is osmosis with a grander ambition. They packed bodies in Natrium, a naturally occurring sodium compound from dried Egyptian lake beds. Same principle as salted meat. The Natrium pulled moisture from the tissue. The composition stopped. What remained could last thousands of years. Natron is also why the periodic table says natrium and not sodium. The Egyptians called it netgeri, the Greeks said nitron, the Arabs natron. European chemists Latinized it to natrium. Many languages still use that name. English went a different route. Sodium from soda, same element, two names, two separate histories arriving at the same box on the table. And in 1930, when the British Empire made it illegal for Indians to produce their own salt, Gandhi walked 388 kilometers to the sea on foot to pick up salt crystals from the shore. Not as a symbol, as a direct challenge to the chemistry of survival. Because without salt, people starved. And a low controlling salt was a low controlling life. A march for two atoms bonded by opposite charges. A march for salt. Remember the number from the beginning? 300 million tons per year, and only 6% is used in food. Let's close that loop. Where does the rest go? Into the part of your life you never label as salt.
When you run electricity through salt water, you break it apart. The sodium and chlorine separate, and what you get from that process are two of the most useful industrial chemicals on Earth: chlorine and sodium hydroxide. Chlorine disinfects your drinking water. Every municipal water system in the world depends on it. It's inside the PVC that makes your pipes, your window frames, your cable insulation. It's in the solvents used to manufacture pharmaceuticals. The sterile environment of every hospital was made possible in part by chlorine. Sodium hydroxide goes the other direction. Paper production, the process that strips wood pulp into cellulose fibers, runs on it. Every bar of soap and bottle of detergent you've ever used. Aluminium refining, the metal in your phone, your laptop, the frame of every commercial aircraft. Glass manufacturing, the de-icing of roads, food processing on an industrial scale. These industries don't just use salt as an ingredient, they begin with it. The 6% you put on food, that's the part you see. 94% is embedded in the objects around you. Salt didn't stop being essential to civilization when refrigerators were invented, it just became invisible.
The Roman soldier who received his salarium, the Egyptian priest packing natron around the body, the Indian marching to the sea for the right to collect crystals from the shore. They all understood something that got buried under the obstruction as the supply chain grew bigger and the product got more refined. That these two atoms, one ionic bond, is load-bearing infrastructure for everything built on top of it. It always was. There are sodium ions in your bloodstream right now, running electrical signals that became thoughts, memories. The experience of watching this video, those ions came from food. The food came from somewhere that involved salt. Salt that was mined from a deposit left by an ancient ocean 13 million years ago. That ocean is this wall. Thank you for your time. See you in the next video.